Hey everybody, welcome to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and here on my YouTube channel, and in this video we are finally going to get around to the 2019 studio tour. This has been a video people have been asking me about for a while, and I finally said, oh, what the hell, let's go ahead and let's shoot it today and let's give the people what they want. Now, the last time I did a studio tour was about 2 or 3 years ago, and the studio has changed a lot in the layout, in the look. We removed some walls, we rearranged things, we got a bunch of new stuff, so it's appropriate to do a studio tour this time around. So the way this room is kind of broken down, the way I look at it, into like 3 different sections. We have kind of the hangout, listen to vinyl, and play video games on the TV section, which is the section that I'm standing in now. And then we also have kind of the mid part of the room, which you'll see in a few minutes, which is where my band rehearses, the Heather Rose Band. You can check us out at the Heather Rose Band on Facebook. Just search that out and you'll see our Facebook page. And then lastly, we also have a section where my Argosy Workstation is, where I do all my video production, all the live streaming, all the home recording made easy, and mixingmadeeasy.net tutorials are all made over there. And we're gonna look at that as well. So join me for the 2019 studio tour. At the beginning of this video, you probably saw some nice sweeps and some camera work showing you the entire studio is one big walkthrough. This is going to kind of be broken down into sections. So also, please make sure you subscribe. You hit the notification bell so you know when I create new content and I post new videos. And also go out to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and get your 5 free mixing training courses. It's my gift to you just to say thanks for visiting HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com. And you can also check out MixingMadeEasy.net if you really want to dive down deep and learn the craft of mixing in a very non-technical way, MixingMadeEasy.net. So, without further ado, let's take a look at a little closer detail of each one of these sections of this studio and get ready for the 2019 studio tour. Okay, so in this section here, this is kind of the first area that you see when you walk into the studio and you come down the stairs from the main part of my home, which is this door right behind me here. You saw that in the intro part of this video, where you kind of walk down the stairs, you come through that door, and this is kind of the first thing that you see. Now this area I kind of call the hangout, kind of listening area. It's on the opposite side of the room from my Argosy Workstation and where I create all my videos. This is the far end of this room. And in this room area here is where I want to kind of take a break from making videos, take a break from working and mixing, and I may want to come out and hang out here, where you can see I have a couple of leather chairs here where you can kind of sit down and get comfortable. And there's a couple of different things you can do on this side of the room here. Over here we have a 55-inch 4K television where I have an Xbox hooked up to. It's also a smart TV, so you can watch movies, Netflix, Hulu, and all that stuff. So you can kind of sit down here and hang out and watch some TV. We have over here, we have our turntable here. I have a Techniques turntable. I'm really into collecting vinyl these days, which I'll show you a little bit up close in a second. We have a turntable here, and we have a couple of nice bookshelf audio speakers here made by ELAC, which is a pretty well-known brand in the hi-fi world, in the home studio theater world. And it sounds great. It's hooked up through an amplifier, so everything done on the television comes through the sound system, which is great, as well as listening to some vinyl. So that's what's kind of done over here. Now in the back here, and we'll zoom up here in a second, but in the back we have a collection of all my camera gear and stuff that I use to make these videos, as well as my vinyl collection. So let's take a closer look. Okay, now we're over here in the back corner of this little listening area that you just saw a couple of seconds ago, and I just want to kind of show you some of the little trinkets and things that I have kind of stored over in this area. So up top here we have all of the cameras and stuff that I use to create all the videos for the YouTube channel, and the camera gear that I use when I record my band live, which you'll see some footage in a couple of seconds. And so I have up top here, I have my Canon 80D here. This is the camera that kind of started my whole journey for doing DSLR cameras and stepping up from the webcams to make videos for my YouTube channel. I talked a lot about this on my live streaming over the last month or so, and I've upgraded from this to the camera that I'm using right now to film this video, which is the Sony a7 III. And I'm going to do a whole video on all the specifics of my camera gear, but this is kind of where my cameras are. I have a couple of GoPros here, the Hero 7 Blacks here, that I use again for when I record my band live in clubs. These are great to bring out into a live venue and record the video off of that. They're really clear and nice wide angle, and I'm also going to start using this around the studio for alternate camera angles, which is cool. So I have 2 of those. And then up here I got some lenses, a bunch of Canon lenses for the Canon 80D when I was using that exclusively. And then I also have a couple of Sigma lenses and stuff. So different camera lenses, different focal lengths. Some of the lenses I use, some of them have been around for a while and I just kind of have them there. I'm still experimenting with the whole camera lens thing. The lens that I'm using on the camera now is a Sigma 18mm to 35mm lens, an art series lens, which I really like. You get a really nice crisp video on it. And so I've been using that pretty much primarily with my Sony a7 III, and I really like how that's kind of turned out. On top here, we have kind of our little mini amp collection here. I have all the little mini collectible amps. They all work. You can plug into them. You can play guitar through them if you want, but they're just up here for more decorative stuff here. Down below here, something that I've recently got into is I've been recently, over the last year or so, getting back into listening to vinyl. So like a lot of you that are probably watching this video, if you're someone that's over the age of, say, 35 or 40, you know, back in the 70s and 80s, we used to listen to records, you know, big black pieces of plastic, and we'd have our little turntable in our bedrooms. And as we grew up and the CD came out, and then later on the MP3 and the WAV files and all the digital music, a lot of those records got thrown away, they got given away, all my old equipment got tossed when I was living in my parents' house many years ago. And recently I said, I really wanted to get back into listening to records the way I did when I was a kid. So I started getting into vinyl, which is a whole nother collectible thing that is like a money pit if you allow it to be. So I don't have a ton of vinyl, but my whole goal with vinyl was I didn't want to just buy everything that I had on CD on record. That wasn't my goal. My goal was I wanted to get, you know, some of my favorite records have a limited amount of vinyl, more quality than quantity. But the real fun for me is, and still is that collecting original pressings. So, and I'll show you a couple here in a second, where I'm not just getting the repress of stuff, because now vinyl's kind of making a resurgence, and all these companies are re-releasing vinyl, remastering it on thicker, heavy gauge or heavy gram of vinyl. But my goal was to get the original ones in very good quality, which is a whole different thing you can do for collecting vinyl, which has been a lot of fun for me. So as you saw in the last shot, we saw my turntable and my speakers there. I have a Technics turntable that I bought. That's relatively new. It's not an old vintage piece. And then I started collecting vinyl. So some of my favorite vinyl. So I have things like, here's a great example of one. This is the Allman Brothers Live at the Fillmore from 1970 or 71 or 72. And again, this is an original pressing. You can get this as a repress, but this is an original pressing on the Capricorn label. And the quality of this, both the disc itself and the jacket, are almost flawless. And this took me a while to find, and I paid a pretty good penny for it. But if you're not an Allman Brothers fan, or if you are an Allman Brothers fan, this is the record to have. This was huge, this live record. It sounds fantastic. The sound quality is unbelievable, and the condition of this record is great. And so here's one of my prized possessions of one of the records that took me the longest to find in this condition. You can find these things out there where people have, you know, used them and wore them out because it was a real popular album at the time. So people played it and played it and played it, and the jacket gets all torn up and the corners get all torn up. So to find one in this condition is not very easy to find. They're out there, but they're not easy to find. And I keep everything in the plastic sleeves, and then I take all the vinyl themselves and put them in the static-free paper. I have a record cleaner out in the back room to clean all my vinyl. So I really kind of get into it. It's kind of a passion of mine. So this is one that I'm really proud of. And then a couple others that I have that I found really cool to have. Here's another great one, again, an original pressing. This is Boston's first record, which is fantastic. This is the one with all the hits on it. And this is one, again, that took a while to find. Easy to find. You can get these all over eBay and on discogs.com, but to find it in this condition, not easy. And this thing, again, has very little wear on it. It looks like it was hardly ever played. There's hardly any ring wear on the back here at all, and the vinyl itself is in great condition. So this is another really popular record. It's something I enjoyed listening to when I was growing up as a kid. Had the original way back when. Now I have another original from the 70s, which is really cool. Let's see, is there any other goodies in here I can show you that you might find really interesting? Again, if you're not an older person like me, you probably don't even know what vinyl is. For all you younger folks, here is another one that's real hard to find. This is Derek and the Dominoes live record. Again, live in concert. This is a German import. Again, back from the 70s, original pressing. The jacket is almost in flawless condition. There isn't a dent, just a little dented corner up here in the top, but for the most part, this record and the vinyl itself is in fantastic condition, and it sounds wonderful on a turntable. I know you get some light glare there, sorry about that. So that's a really cool record. Let me show you a couple more and then we'll move on here, because people have asked me about my record collection before, so I want to show you some of the ones here. That's why we're doing this. Here is another one. Where is it? That's a really cool, this one. This is Eric Clapton's first record. Again, back on the RSO label from the early 70s. This is his first solo record that he did. Again, nothing special. You can find this anywhere, and you can even find a repress of it, but you can't find it in this condition. You can't find, it's hard to find in this condition where the corners are not jagged, the vinyl itself and the jacket is almost in perfect condition. This is probably, in my mind, one of his best albums, his first album. And again, listening to vinyl on a good turntable through a decent set of speakers, there's nothing like it. It's not like listening to MP3s, I can tell you that. And that's some of the vinyl. I also have over here a bunch of box sets. I'm a big Led Zeppelin fan. I've been collecting Led Zeppelin stuff for eons, bootlegs and all that stuff. But recently, over the last maybe 7 to 10 years, Jimmy Page has released all of their these deluxe box sets of all the albums, which come with the original records, vinyl in them, remastered, but then also an outtakes album, which has all alternate mixes, you know, different mixes, different versions of songs, some with vocals, some without vocals, different type of instrumentation. If you're a Led Zeppelin fan, these things are really cool. This happens to be Led Zeppelin 1, but I have them all, and they're all in pristine condition. I bought them all brand new. They've all been played once or twice, but they're just kind of sitting up here as a collectible. And as you can see, I have all of them. And then I have their more recent stuff as well. This is another really cool compilation box set, live BBC sessions. This is really, really great as well. If you like early Led Zeppelin, you'll love this stuff. Or if you like Led Zeppelin in general. So that's really cool. And then I have, you know, like ZZ Top box sets and all that. So most of the music that I listen to is the 70s kind of stuff, the you know, the blues rock kind of a vibe. And then I have some new stuff by Joe Bonamassa and Robin Ford and some other stuff like that, but that's kind of the music that I'm into. Down below here, I have a bunch of music books. Again, some Led Zeppelin collectible books, a bunch of Guitar World magazines from back in the 70s and 80s, and stuff like that, which you may not be able to see in the lower sections down here. And then I also have some Xbox games. I'm not a big gamer, but I do have an Xbox One X console, and I have a few discs there as well. And that's kind of this corner section right behind me here, which you may not be able to see. It might be very, very dark. It's just a bunch of shelving units where I keep all my camera bags, all the video equipment bags and gear. There's some, you know, MIDI controllers and some spare microphones. It's just kind of a utility shelf. It just kind of is out of the way here. And that's where I kind of store all that stuff. So that's kind of the listening area here, where we kind of hang out and kind of have fun and take a break from making videos and making music. So now I'm going to turn the camera around here in a minute. We'll change camera angles and I'll show you the area where kind of the band rehearses, and I'll walk you through how the band kind of sets up in this space as well. Okay, so here we are in the kind of the middle section of the studio, and this is kind of where the band, well, not kind of, this is where the band, the Heather Rose Band, rehearses. So if you want to check out the Heather Rose Band, you can go to Facebook, search the Heather Rose Band. I'll leave the link in the description box below. You'll see a couple of the videos that I shot of us rehearsing here, and who knows, maybe you'll even see a little bit of a clip right now.
I've been mad.
and we're back. So I hope you kind of enjoyed that. Go check out the Heather Rose Band on Facebook. But anyway, so one of the things I wanted to make sure that I did when we were rehearsing here as a band, and which is I think a great idea for people that are getting ready to go out and perform live, which we hadn't done up until about a week or so ago, is I wanted to set up in the room physically like we were going to be playing on stage. So as you can see here, we have our vocal mic here for Heather in the center. We have our bass player mic here, John. His vocal mic is here, and then my vocal mic is over here, a little bit off frame here. It's probably, we're only about maybe 2.5 to 3.5 feet apart from each other physically in the room, because that's where kind of like a lot of small clubs and a lot of small stages, you don't have a lot of room. So I wanted to make everything nice, tight, and compact. Not to mention the studio is not that big, so we can't spread out like we're on a big stage. And then our drums obviously are behind here. So the drum kit that I'm using here is just a Pearl export kit. It's kind of not their entry level, maybe one step up above that. It's a 5-piece kit. I might have paid about $1,000 for it, brand new, and that came with some hardware. So our drummer here uses this, and he brings his own cymbals. We have some Zildjian, some pasty cymbals here as well. Microphones that I'm using for all you audio geeks out there want to know how I record this drum kit when I record the videos that you see on Facebook, which I'll talk about the mixer and stuff in a minute. But the microphones that I'm using on the drum kit are all pretty much Audix. On the toms, we have the Audix D2 and the Audix D4 on the floor tom. On the snare, we have a Sennheiser mic on the snare. And then for the kick mic, we have an Audix kick drum mic as well, and that's it. For the overhead up top here, you might be able to see it. I just have one mono overhead mic, just kind of taking kind of a snapshot of the kit. This microphone is a large diaphragm condenser mic. I believe it's called a Studio Project mic. It's one of the same microphones that I use to record the drums. Actually, all of these drum mics are the same microphones I used when I recorded the Made Easy series, Recording Drums Made Easy. It was on this drum kit with these microphones and that same overhead mic in this configuration. So you can always check out Recording Drums Made Easy on homerecordingmadeeasy.com. You get to see in detail how I kind of set this up. So that's what we have here for the drums. And again, from the front of the drum kit, the kick drum, to where our vocalist is, maybe 3 steps ahead, we're talking about maybe 3 feet. So we got things really nice, tight, and compact, which is great. It's a really good vibe to kind of get in and play close together, which is really cool. The other thing that I'm using in this studio to help us so we can hear ourselves, and you might be able to see it here. I'll do a close-up shot here in a second. You'll probably see some footage come up on the screen. I have these little vocal monitors here that kind of are mounted to each one of the microphone stands. This is the TC Helicon. This is called the Voice Solo FX150. So this patches right into my mixing board, and it's great because it has a little bit of reverb on it, and you can dial in your vocals so you could hear yourself here and on all 3 mic stands, which is great. I also have it patched into my mixer, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, on an aux end. So if our drummer has one back here, he has what we call a hot box, a vocal box right here as well. And if he wants to hear the vocal, it may be a little bit of my guitar because he's sitting, my guitar cabinet is off screen here. I could put that in his monitor. So this is great where we don't have to have big floor wedges on the floor, because as I said before, this room is used multi-purpose. So when we're not rehearsing, I just simply take these 2 microphone stands out into the back room. I leave mine set up, and everything else gets set up. I don't have to have these 2 big floor monitors on the floor in such a small room. These little personal vocal monitors that just attach to the microphone stand, they're powered, sound fantastic. Great for listening to vocals, great for putting a little bit of guitar in there. Bass guitar maybe not so much, but bass in a room this size, you can feel it pretty good. You don't really need a monitor for bass, and so that's what we do. The only other thing that comes through our PA, we have a main PA across the room, which I'll show you in a minute, where I have a 112 PA speaker, a Mackie PA speaker with a 12-inch speaker and a horn. I have that attached to a 12-inch subwoofer made by Behringer. And all I have going through that is our kick drum. So I have the kick drum going through the sub, so you get a little bit of thump in the room, and then everything else vocal-wise is coming through the one main speaker and through the personal monitors, and then we just kind of take up the bass and the guitar to drum level. And it's great. What's great about rehearsing in a room like this, it's acoustically treated, as I'll show you as we walk around the room after, but you don't have any feedback, there's no weird frequencies, it sounds great. It sounds better in here when we rehearse than 90% of the clubs that I play out in. The sound on those stages sometimes are horrendous. And here it's fantastic because you can play at a moderate level. You don't get any feedback. Everything sounds nice and tight, and it's just really, really nice. I'm fortunate and blessed to be able to have a room big enough to where I can rehearse with my band here. So this is kind of the band area right here. It's all maybe the size of, you know, I stretch out both arms and I'm almost at where I stand and almost where my bass player stands. We're only maybe about 10 feet apart across from one end of the stage, if you will, to the other. And this is kind of the band setup. So what we'll do now is I'll flip the camera around again and we'll take a look at a couple of the guitars I have. I'll show you the PA speaker that I have as well for this, so you can kind of see how I have that kind of set up. The PA speaker is maybe 8 or 10 feet away up on a stand, and I'll show you that in a second. So we will flip the camera around and we'll take a look at the other side of the studio. Okay, so now we are directly across from where we were in the last segment there, where the band kind of rehearses. We're maybe another, I don't know, 6 or 8 feet away from that on the opposite side of the room. And this is where we kind of house our PA speakers. I have one Mackie 12-inch driver. Yeah, it's 12 or 15. Now I think this is a 12-inch driver. PA speaker here, powered PA speaker going into the Behringer sub, and this is what we're listening to aside from the little personal vocal monitors that I spoke about in the last area there. This is where our vocals only are coming through here, and our kick drum is coming through the sub. It's a 15-inch sub. It's not a ton of power. It's not a real big subwoofer, but it's just enough to hear some nice kick in the room when you're playing, which I always kind of like. Everything else is not being mic'd through the PA. The room is just not big enough for that. You really don't need it. Behind here is where I have my guitars, and I've, you know, bought and sold many guitars over the years, and so you've seen some other ones that I don't any longer have, but these are my latest ones. So this is a Friedmann Metro D. This is their kind of take on the Les Paul. This is my newest guitar. I'm trying to bring it up so you can see it here. I really love this. I love the Friedmann guitars. I have a couple of them, and I just absolutely love them. They make modern style playability with a vintage feel and look, and they really have achieved that. The necks are probably the most comfortable necks I've ever played. They're super light. They're less than 8 pounds. They're like maybe 7 to 7.5 pounds. They sound fantastic. They're all made by hand. Grover Jackson is the luthier that builds most of these with a small team. And I just love Friedmann stuff. I think they just make great stuff. And this is probably the best Les Paul style guitar I've ever played. Sounds just like a Les Paul, but feels like a Les Paul as far as the sustain goes, but it's a lot lighter than a typical Les Paul. It doesn't have the big, you know, heel joint here, so you can get nice up high at the top frets. It's not uncomfortable to play, and the neck is nice and worn in. There's no lacquer on it, and it's got kind of this semi-relict kind of a finish. This happens to be in what I think they call Pelican Blue. So this is really cool. So again, the Friedmann Metro D. For another guitar here, my other Friedmann that I have, which I really, really like, is the Friedmann Vintage T. This is their take on the Telecaster with humbuckers. This sounds quite a bit different from the Metro D in that the Metro D's got a little bit more of a mid-range bump to it. The pickups are a little bit lower output. These are a little bit hotter, a little bit more warm sounding. Great rock and roll guitar, and this is from 2016. Again, super light, great craftsmanship. It's got kind of that nice relic, but in a very tasteful way, kind of a feel. And what I love about these things, again, is they're just so comfortable to play. Another one of the necks that is the most comfortable neck I've ever played. And you don't have to worry about banging it up and you ding it up. Hey, it doesn't matter, it's already relic, right? So that is the Vintage T, the Friedmann Vintage T. And then lastly, I have one of my prized possessions. This is a Gibson 335. This is a 2014. This is a 2014 Gibson ES 335 in Tobacco Sunburst. I love this guitar. This guitar just plays wonderfully. Sounds great. Again, totally different sounds than the two Friedmanns, but I just love the way it sounds. This nice tobacco vintage Sunburst here. Okay. And I also have, which is not on camera, a Tegeler Acoustic, a Sunburst Acoustic, which is in the case, which I'm not going to get out right now. And then lastly, for bass, when I'm recording bass for television and film. I think you saw at the very beginning of this video, I showed the whole wall of all the BMI royalty statements that I've gotten over the years. I do write a lot of music for television and film. Shows like American Chopper, shows like Counting Cars, a lot of stuff you see on the History Channel, a lot of those, you know, kind of more geared towards the man, you know, muscle car shows and those kinds of things. I've been on Tattoo Inc. I've been on a lot of popular television shows. And this is what I record bass with. This is a 1997 Fender P Bass. I bought it used on Reverb for probably 600 bucks. I'm not much of a bass player, but this does the job just fine. Sounds great. Easy, made in the USA. Fender P Bass, 97 in black finish. And they're all kind of housed here in this Fender kind of guitar road case. Can hold 7 guitars again. Here's 4 guitars out here. I have one in the back, my Tegeler Acoustic, which I'm not going to get out and show you. You don't need to see that. Don't worry about that, but it's a cool, I don't play much acoustic guitar, but I do have one. So that is this kind of section of the room, the guitar kind of section. Oh, and people are going to ask what kind of guitar amp and stuff did I play. I didn't show it in the last section. So in the intro video, you saw I have, for my amp modeling, I'm using a Line 6 Helix, which I really, really like. I think the Line 6 stuff sounds fantastic. I used to drag around a big Friedmann, you know, BE100 head that weighed about 80 pounds, and I just got tired of doing that. The new Friedmann models in the Helix sound fantastic, and I'm running that through a Marshall 412 speaker cabinet with 25-watt Celestion greenbacks in it. And the power amp that I'm using is a Seymour Duncan Power Stage 700, which is a 700-watt solid-state power amp that goes out of the Helix into that clean power amp, and that's what powers the 412s. And it is plenty powerful for a large size club. I just played a club again with the Heather Rose Band about a week ago. I brought that 412 with that Seymour Duncan, and I didn't even have that thing upturned halfway, and it was plenty loud. And we weren't even miking guitar cabinets. We were using the guitar in the room, which is spilling from the stage. That's what filled up a huge room that seats about 400 people, and it was plenty loud. So it works out really great. And what's great about it is everything packs in my amp in my Line 6 pack in 1 gig bag. I bring my guitars in another gig bag, and then I have my cabinet, 3 pieces of gear, and I walk into a club and I don't have to drag around a big tube head and worry about banging that up and having a road case for it and the tubes and everything else. It's just the Line 6 is so great. And what I love about it too is you have multiple different amp tones in there if you want to use them, and it's something that you know, they just sound great today. The modeling for the guitar stuff, the Kemper, the Axe effects, sounds so close to the tube heads today. For what I do, it's so much more convenient than having a bunch of tube heads laying around the studio, which is kind of cool. So that's what I use for my personal guitar rig as well, in case you were wondering. So now in the next section, we're going to take a look over here to my right here. We're going to take a look at the Argosy Workstation. We're going to walk through some of the gear that I have and how I create all the videos and how I mix and do all the things that I do for Home Recording Made Easy and the YouTube channel, and for mixingmadeeasy.net. So let's turn the camera around and let's take a look at that end of the studio. Okay, so here we are at kind of the area that most people are probably tuning into this video. They want to kind of see. And again, there'll be some, you can take a look at the very beginning of this video where I did a lot of close-up shots here. I'll do some that you may pop up on your screen here in a minute, but I wanted to give you kind of an overall feel of the entire, you know, workspace, if you will, with having the camera back a little bit further so I can show you the acoustic treatment and whatnot. So let's start with that. Let's start with what's kind of on the wall and work our way down to the workstation. So as you can see up on the wall, we have a 55-inch or no 50-inch television here, an LG television that I use as a secondary monitor, which is kind of cool. I might be swapping that out pretty soon, but we'll talk about that later. And above that, you'll see 2 lights on the wall, 2 aperture LED panels with some soft boxes, which are a recent addition to the studio to help me when I'm making my videos, you know, at the computer here for live streaming and such. I can get some nice lighting, some nice softbox lighting to help the image quality be as best as it can be. And all of that can be turned up or down dim-wise with a remote control, which I really like, so I never have to get out of the seat and adjust the lighting, which is perfect. They're attached to the wall with just some wall brackets by the company Triad Obit. Again, I'll put the links in the description box. They have kind of a modular system how you can take microphones and lighting and audio equipment and video equipment, and it has kind of a quick release modular system where you can just kind of snap things in and out of different brackets, which is really cool. There's a whole video on my YouTube channel talking about the Triad Obit product line, which is about 1.5 years old. All the stuff in that video I use to mount all the stuff that I have around here in the studio. I have Triad Obit everywhere. All the microphone stands I use for the band are Triad Obit. This microphone here with my SM7B broadcast microphone is all done with Triad Obit and kind of mounted directly to my table. The lighting on the wall is all being done with the help of Triad Obit. So check out Triad Obit. They make great stuff. It's a little pricey, but it makes setup and breakdown very, very easily, and really the only thing that you're limited to is your imagination on the way you need to have your configuration set up. So those are the two lights in the monitor. So what you can probably see on the wall here in the far corners behind these column lights, these LED lights that are kind of changing color for kind of mood lighting, as you can see we have two big bass traps from floor to ceiling. Those are made by the company called Acoustic Acoustic MAC, company down in Florida. Very reasonable, all handmade bass trap and acoustic panels. I have them throughout the entire studio here. Once again, there is a YouTube video on the whole acoustic treatment thing that I did in this studio. It's all pretty much the same, so I'm not going to waste your time looking at that in specifics. You can click the link below and go check out that video. But I have two bass traps from floor to ceiling on one side, and on the other side here behind me, behind this light here, again floor to ceiling. Right next to the TV we have the Auralex kind of the 1-inch foam, and it kind of configured in a diamond pattern to kind of help with the high, the higher frequency, the reflections. The bass trap obviously is absorbing the low ends, and that's the only bass trapping that I have in this part of the studio. Everything else is in the other section of the studio. Go watch the video below. And then really the centerpiece of everything here is this Argosy Workstation. This is the dual 15L model. Again, there's a video on the whole Argosy Workstation build. You can go watch that from a couple of years ago. Some of the gear has changed, but the setup is exactly the same. Starting with my monitors, people ask me all the time, what monitors do you use? I use the Focal BE Solo 6s. I've been using these for about 5 years. I love them. They have a 5.25-inch woofer and a beryllium tweeter. And for a room this large, and this room, by the way, if I haven't mentioned it already, is about 15 feet wide and about 22 feet deep. But this is, these speakers fill up the room really, really nice. I really like these a lot, and I know them very, very well. So my mixes translate perfectly outside of this room because I know these monitors so well and how they sound. Right below that here, we have the mixer that I use for the band rehearsals, as I mentioned a little earlier. This is the Presonus AR16 USB mixer. It kind of fits perfectly rack mounted right in the rack spacing of the Argosy Workstation. This is a 16 channel input here. Everything is mic'd up in the room, as I said a couple of minutes ago. In the last section into this mixer, it's not all coming through the PA, just the vocals and the kick drum going through the subs. However, USB out into my computer so I can multi-track record our rehearsals, and I use that all the time. I record almost every single rehearsal, especially when we're working out new tunes, so we can listen to it back, which is really cool. I also use this mixer when I recorded the videos that you saw a little earlier in this video of the band playing live here in the studio, as well as the videos on the Facebook page. So this is a great, great mixer. I love this a lot. Works perfectly, has never let me down. As we move across here, my microphone, people ask me about all the time, what's the microphone you use when you record all your training videos and do all your live streams? This is the Shure SM7B broadcast mic. I've been using this for probably 3 or 4 years. Love it, sounds great. No fuss, no muss, just sounds good. Plug it directly into the interface, good to go. It's on this boom arm here. Again, this is all Triad Obit. Triad Obit boom arm with a little mounting plate that mounts directly to the Argosy Workstation. And I can easily just pull it out, swing it left to right. And when I want it, I'm not using it, I just pull it out of the way, shrink it down. Really, really easy. I don't have to have a bunch of mic stands on the floor or anything like that. It just kind of swings out of the way. It's perfect. Over here, and this part of is going to change very, very soon, as I just bought an iMac Pro. It just hasn't come in yet, but if you go watch the video on my channel where we actually purchased the iMac Pro together, which is really cool, It's going to replace my Dell monitor here. This is an older Dell high definition 30-inch monitor. It's not a 4K display. The iMac Pro is going to go in its place, which is a 5K display. So that's going to be replacing pretty soon. Above that, right now I'm using, or I have an old webcam up here, which is what I used to do with most of my videos. All was done on this Logitech. I think this is the 920. Webcam. I just have it up here hooked up to the computer. I don't use it anymore because now as you guys may know, if you've been watching me for any length of time, I use my DSLR camera, the Sony A7 III, which is what I'm using to record this video with. Sits behind the monitor, again on a Triad Orbit mini stand, and I just clip the camera in there, and I have an instant webcam to record my live streams and all my YouTube videos and all my Made Easy and mixingmadeeasy.net training tutorials. Over here, we have the editor's keys, Presonus Studio One keyboard, which is really cool. All those shortcuts are all laid out. It's really nice. I love it. It's a nice light up keyboard. It's really, really great. Next to this, behind here, we have the Elgato Stream Deck. I just got this recently where I can I use it with OBS, the live streaming software. So when I do my live streams, I can switch camera angles and scenes. That's a really cool piece, pretty new to my studio as I'm trying to step up my live stream productions. Next to that, I have the monitor, the single fader port, the new single channel fader port by Presonus. Again, it's fantastic, use it all the time. Love it, small, right on the desk, it's perfect. And then next to that, I have the Presonus Monitor Station 2, which has the ability to hook up 3 sets of monitors and different types of inputs and such. And everything routes through my monitor station, all the different configurations that I do for my training tutorials, for things that I do in Final Cut Pro, things I do in Studio One, through YouTube, through OBS, everything kind of goes through there. And it works out perfectly for recording all my training tutorials. It's a great way to have everything come into one area and then distribute out the audio to wherever it needs to go, depending on what I'm doing. So that's a really cool piece as well. Now, when we move over to this side of the workstation, again, some of you have seen this stuff before. We have a couple of pieces of gear here in this rack here. So again, I'm doing analog summing, and I did a full video on this particular piece. This is the Tegeler Audio tube summing mixer. Again, go watch the video. I'm sure there'll be a link in the description box. You can check out my full review. It's a 32 channel summing amplifier, which I do a lot of analog summing here. Beneath that, I have the Tegeler Audio, the Creme, which is a Pultec style EQ and kind of an SSL style compressor, all built into one unit on my master bus, which I use all the time. Once again, there is a full video on the YouTube channel reviewing the Tegeler Audio Creme. Go check that out. You'll see real big close-ups of it, and how it works and how it sounds. Above that, I have the Presonus Digimac DP88, which is an extension of my audio interface, which is above that, which is the Apollo 8 P, which is the Universal Audio Apollo. So I have that with the DP88 kind of daisy chained together. Not so much for the inputs, although now I have 16 channels of input, but I really wanted to have the line outs so I can use those to do my analog summing. So I'm using 16 channels of summing using the direct outputs on the DP88 and the Universal Audio Apollo, and that goes into the summing mixer and then back into Studio One, and that's what gives you the nice analog goodness, okay? And then behind here, which I don't know if you can see it, behind the monitor station here, I have another small interface. That is the Presonus i2 interface. And that is really that is patched in through the monitor station. And that is really for when I do my ScreenFlow tutorials where I'm teaching you guys stuff in Studio One. I record it with ScreenFlow, and the audio from the ScreenFlow is picking up the audio from the i2. So yeah, I have 2 different interfaces, and the reason why is because when I do video recording and I have to capture audio, it needs to see a different audio interface than the main interface, which is the Universal Audio Apollo. Enough of that. You don't need to worry about that, other than that's how that kind of works. And that's really it. I don't have, as you guys can see, a ton of gear here, but it's very flexible, and I can do many different things over here. Everything, again, from recording YouTube videos, recording all the products for home recording made easy in mixingmadeeasy.net, as well as doing live streams. It's all done right here. And so this is working out really, really nice. And I'm really excited to be getting the iMac Pro, which should be coming in another couple of weeks. And we'll be doing a whole bunch of videos on that as well. And that's going to kind of sit right over here. So that is kind of the mothership area of the studio, the opposite end of the studio of where we started this video at earlier on, at the over there by the vinyl and by the listening and kind of the gaming area. This is the total opposite end of the room where I do most of my professional work. So now let's flip this around one more time and we'll conclude this video. Well, that's it. I appreciate everybody taking the time to take a little journey around my studio. I've had people tell me before they see different clips of the studio and they really tell me, oh, you're so lucky, you got so much space and whatnot. And believe me, I realize I'm very, very blessed. This is a long time in the making. For many, many years, I worked in a 10 by 10 spare bedroom in a condo, in my wife's and I's condo before we moved to our house. And when we bought our house, we bought it with an unfinished basement. So I was able to build the studio from the ground up. And I realize I'm extremely lucky to have this much space and to be able to do all the things that I do in here. And it's really great when you work from home and you work as a home business owner, and this is where I spend 8 or 10 hours of my day. It's nice to have the room kind of broken up into a few different areas so you can kind of, break up some of the monotony and make it a more comfortable workspace. So believe me, I appreciate all the kind words people have said about my studio. Believe me, I realize how lucky that I am and that a lot of people don't have a space like this. But you can do as much as I do here, maybe with the exception of band rehearsal, in a much smaller space. I ran my business out of, like I said, a 10 by 10 bedroom for the first few years that I was in business before I got to this point where I was able to expand and then buy all the necessary stuff to continue to grow homerecordingmadeeasy.com. So I hope you liked this video. Again, I know it wasn't overly special, but people have asked about it, so I wanted to share it with you. Let me know what you think. Leave some comments below. And again, go out to homerecordingmadeeasy.com. If this is the first time that you're here, I want to give you 5 free mixing training courses just to say thank you for checking out homerecordingmadeeasy.com and everything I do here on my YouTube channel. And last but not least, if you want to learn the craft of mixing in a very non-technical way, perfect for beginners and intermediate level mixers, whether you're mixing clients' work or band's work or friends' music, or if you're just a home recording musician and you want to mix your own music and make it sound professional, check out what I have going on in mixingmadeeasy.net. So let me know what you thought about this video below. I appreciate your time. My name's been Dave with homerecordingmadeeasy.com, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.